Some people don't say they don't believe in you. They just smirk. They ask questions that aren't really questions. And for years, I let that silence shape how I saw myself. But not anymore. Let me tell you what happened the day I ran into my ex, the one who thought I'd never make it. It was supposed to be a quick coffee. I had paint under my nails, a deadline breathing down my neck, and exactly 23 minutes before my next client call. But then I heard his voice. Wow. Still chasing dreams, huh? I turned, and there he was, my ex. Same pressed shirt, same polished smirk, same tone that used to make me second-guess every decision I made. He was standing by the counter, holding a sleek laptop bag and a tall, overpriced espresso. Everything about him looked intentional. Like he'd walked into that coffee shop knowing he'd run into someone he once outgrew. I gave a small smile. Hey. He looked me over, eyes flicking from the paint on my fingers to the scuffed backpack on the chair next to me. Didn't expect to see you here, he said. Still doing the art thing? The art thing. I let that sit for a second. Yeah. I'm still doing it. He chuckled, low and knowing. I always admired your passion. Just thought you'd settle into something more stable by now. There it was, that familiar jab wrapped in concern. The same tone he used when he told me to think long-term instead of applying for that residency. The same way he suggested I put the paintbrush down for a while when his job got stressful, but this time, something in me didn't flinch. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the key. A long, brass one with chipped paint and a custom tag that read, Studio 11. I held it between my fingers, just long enough for the light to catch it. He tilted his head. What's that? I smiled. It's the key to my studio, I said. And I watched the smirk falter, just slightly. You have a studio? I do. Pause. Actually, I just unlocked it. He blinked. Didn't know what to say. Which was a first. I finished my coffee, dropped the cup in the bin, and walked past him toward the door. Good seeing you, I said without turning around. Really? I could feel his eyes on my back the whole way out, and for the first time in years, I didn't shrink beneath the weight of his doubt. I walked taller. Because I wasn't chasing dreams anymore. I was living inside one. It took me 11 months, 14 freelance contracts, and more caffeine than I'm proud of, but I got it. A little studio space above a dusty bookstore, with creaky floors and a leaky window. The kind of place you'd miss unless you were looking for it. Which was perfect, because for a long time, I felt the same way. I remember the first night I stood in that space. It smelled like old wood and dust and leftover ambition. No furniture, no heat, no real plan. Just me, 2 boxes of supplies. And a floor that echoed when I moved. I sat on the ground, pulled out my sketch pad, and stared at a blank page for what felt like an hour. Then I cried, not because I was sad, but because it finally felt like mine. For years, I'd worked from kitchen tables, cramped corners, borrowed spaces with bad lighting and worse acoustics. I painted between meetings, sketched on the train, hid my canvases in closets I didn't own, and every time I told someone what I did, it felt like a confession. I'm trying to be an artist. I'm working on something. I have a small commission coming up. As if saying it too boldly would make it sound fake, but not anymore, because that studio, tiny, cracked, imperfect, was a declaration. It said, I believe in this, even if no one else does, and slowly, others started to believe too. A friend asked if she could rent a corner for pottery. Then someone brought their guitar for rehearsals. Then a woman from a local gallery stopped by to see the mural I'd painted on the back wall, and asked if I'd ever considered showing my work publicly. I said yes. Even though I was terrified. That's how it started. 1 email became 2. A client from Berlin. A collab with a musician. A rush order from a startup that needed hand-painted signage in 2 languages, and through it all, the key stayed with me. In my pocket, in my palm, on my table while I worked. IT wasn't just a KEY, IT was a promise I kept to myself. If this story is resonating with you, even just a little, go ahead and tap like. It helps way more than you think. And if you're curious to see how it all turns out, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting to the best part. The air in the studio smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Strings of warm lights hung from the ceiling, casting soft glows on the canvases lining the walls. My name, my real name, not a username, not a nickname, was printed on a small card by the door. Under the words, featured artist, 1 year in, I paced a little before people started to arrive. First it was friends. Then friends of friends. Then strangers, people who had seen my posts, my flyers, or just followed the music they heard playing from the street below. The space filled fast. Someone brought wine. Someone else brought a dog, and then I saw him. He came in through the side door. Wearing a dark coat and that same unreadable expression. I didn't move. He walked slowly through the room, looking at everything, but not touching. He stopped in front of a canvas I had painted late one night, when I couldn't sleep. A swirl of muted reds and deep blacks, titled Doubt, interrupted. I hadn't known what it meant until that moment. He turned to me. This is impressive, he said, as if the word itself tasted unfamiliar. I smiled. Thanks. How long have you been working out of this place? A year. He nodded, like he was calculating something. Then, so you're really doing it, huh? I tilted my head. Still think I'm chasing dreams? He looked around again. At the crowd. At the art. At the woman laughing by the window holding a sketch I made. At the man asking where to buy prints. I guess not, he said softly. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him, not because he'd lost me, but because he never saw this coming. Not the work. Not the growth. Not the quiet, steady rise that didn't need applause to be real. He looked down at his phone. Well, it's good to see you, he said. I nodded. You too. Then I turned away to greet someone new. He didn't stay long, but I did. I stayed for every smile. Every question, every handshake, every photo, because this wasn't about proving anything anymore. IT was about belonging in a space I built. Brick by emotional brick, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't performing, I was simply present. The next morning, I came in early. The studio was quiet again, just like that first night. Only this time, the silence didn't feel uncertain. It felt earned. There were smudges on the floor from people's shoes. A few wine stains on the table, 2 sketchbooks missing their covers. And a Polaroid stuck to the wall with a thumbtack. Me. Laughing. Surrounded. Lit from behind. I made tea. Turned on the heater, and sat on the stool in the center of the room. For a while, I just breathed. No emails. No meetings. No smirks to answer to, just art. Just space. Just me. I opened the drawer where I kept old notes, ideas I'd written when I was scared to say them out loud. There was one scribbled on a napkin from 2 years ago. It read, "What if I'm not good enough?" I smiled and folded it in half. Then in half again. Then one more time until it was too small to read. I didn't throw it away, I just tucked it deeper into the drawer. It didn't need to disappear. It just didn't run the show anymore. Around noon, I got an email from a woman named Margaret. She had been at the show with her daughter. Her message said, "I saw myself in your paintings. Thank you for reminding me that it's never too late to come back to who we are." I stared at the screen for a long time. That's when I knew I hadn't built a studio. I'd built a place where people could return to themselves. I stood up. took the key from the hook, and walked to the door as it closed behind me. I heard the lock click, not like it used to. Not like it was keeping me out, but like it was finally closing from the inside. Not every dream needs defending. Sometimes, the quietest wins are the ones that echo the longest. If this story meant something to you, take it with you. And if you're still building your version of a studio, just remember, one key can open 1,000 doors. Thank you for listening.